There's something about the way hospital lights buzz that you can't forget. Like bees under your skin. The chemotherapy wing of Mercy General was always cold, always humming, always smelling like antiseptic and worry. I was on round 4 of 12. The drugs dripped through the 4-line in slow motion, like watching oil slide down a pane of glass. Most people picture sickness as pain. The truth is, it's boredom. Numbness. You sit in that chair for hours while your body is being carpet-bombed from the inside. You lose your hair. You lose your appetite. You lose your time. I lost time the most. My name's Michael. I'm 33 years old, and 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. It started with fatigue, a weird swelling in my neck, and then a biopsy that changed everything. My wife, Amber, was with me at the appointment when the doctor said the word. Cancer. Her hand gripped mine tighter than it had in years. I thought we were going to get through it together. I was wrong. Amber is the kind of woman people notice. Blonde, bright, and endlessly energetic. She bakes in the fall, sunbathes in the summer, and insists on decorating the entire house in spring colors by March. She grew up on a farm in Nebraska, which explains her obsession with corn. Not just eating it, Amber loves corn. The look of it. The smell of a fresh cob. She even decorated our kitchen with paintings of cornfields and glass jars filled with yellow kernels. It became a running joke between us. Corn Queen, I used to call her. When the chemo started, things changed. At first, she was with me at every session, bringing crossword puzzles and those dumb little puzzles you slide with your fingers. But by round 2, she started missing the first hour. Then whole sessions. Then the texts came, "Sorry, babe. Had to take care of some errands." I tried not to blame her. She was still cooking for me. Still sleeping in our bed. Still trying. I think. But I noticed she was quieter. Distant. She stopped asking how I was feeling. She spent more time outside. We live in a small town in Illinois, with a wide stretch of land behind our house. There's a cornfield that touches the edge of our property, and during the warmer months, it turns gold and tall like the ones you see in paintings. That's where I'd see her sometimes, walking by herself, arms crossed, or sitting with a book on a checkered blanket. And then, there was him. His name is Todd. 35. Recently divorced. Moved into the house next door about a year ago. Friendly type. Too friendly, maybe. He helped Amber with the garden. Gave her his old patio chairs. And they started talking more, first casually, then constantly. One night, I watched them from the back porch. They were standing close together near the fence, laughing. She touched his arm. I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe I was going crazy. Chemo brain does that to you. Makes you suspicious, paranoid. But deep down, a part of me knew. I didn't confront Amber that night. I just closed the back door quietly and went to bed early. She came in around 11, smelling like firewood and wine. When she climbed into bed, she didn't say a word. Just turned her back to me and pulled the covers up. The next morning, I woke up nauseous again. Chemo days always hit hard in the morning. I sat hunched over the toilet bowl, fighting the urge to throw up, while she stood in the doorway brushing her hair, scrolling on her phone. "You need anything?" she asked, not looking up. I shook my head and flushed. "Nah. I'm good." She made herself breakfast but didn't offer me any. Not that I could eat it anyway. My appetite had been gone for weeks. Still, the silence was heavier than usual. She sat at the kitchen table chewing toast, thumbing through a gardening magazine. I decided not to mention Todd. I didn't want to accuse her without proof. I wanted to believe she was just being kind to a lonely neighbor. But something kept tugging at the edge of my thoughts, something I saw in the way she smiled at him, something too easy. That afternoon, I dozed off in the recliner. When I woke up, the house was quiet. I checked the bedroom. Empty. The kitchen too. Her car was still in the driveway, so she hadn't gone far. I stepped outside. And there she was. Standing near the edge of the cornfield, right where our yard bled into the rows of tall green stalks. Todd was there, too. They were talking low, heads bent slightly together. She was laughing again. I crouched low behind the shed, ashamed of myself for spying, but I couldn't stop watching. I saw him gesture toward the cornfield, like he was telling her a story. She looked intrigued, leaning in. Then I heard him say something that made my stomach flip. "I've got something you might like," he said, grinning. "It's about the same size as one of those ears of corn you love so much." Amber gave him a look, half teasing, half unsure. "Really?" she asked. "Yeah," he chuckled. "But we have to be careful. We gotta see if you can handle it first. Don't want you choking on it." She blinked at him, then reached down toward the picnic basket they had laid out. She pulled out an ear of corn, already husked, bright yellow and shiny with butter. "Like this?" Todd nodded slowly. "Exactly like that." She held it in both hands. Then, slowly, playfully, she opened her mouth and pushed the cob past her lips. I felt my whole body go cold. She kept going. I saw her eyes water just slightly as the whole thing disappeared into her throat. Todd watched, mesmerized. When she pulled it back out, she wiped her lips and said, "See? No problem." He grinned wide, almost like he couldn't believe what he'd just seen. "Then I guess we're ready to go look for more corn." She stood and brushed the grass off her sundress. "Let's go," she said, her voice low and eager. "The tall rows in the back are the best. Nobody can see anything from there." And then I watched them disappear into the corn. I don't know how long I stood there behind the shed, crouched low like a scared animal. My knees ached. My head buzzed, not just from the chemo, but from what I'd just seen. I'd never felt that kind of quiet before. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that settles inside your chest and presses down, squeezing everything out of you. They were gone. Just gone. Vanished between those tall green stalks like they were being swallowed by the earth itself. I wanted to run into the field after them, but what would I even say? That I'd been spying like some sick voyeur? That I'd watched my wife practically deep-throat a piece of corn in front of another man? I backed away from the shed and stumbled into the house. My legs were weak. I leaned there, heaving, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. When it was over, I rinsed my mouth, wiped my face, and stared into the kitchen window. Out there, beyond the grass, the cornfield shimmered in the summer heat like a curtain of secrets. I imagined her in there, laughing softly, her sundress pulled up, her fingers digging into Todd's shoulders. I imagined her calling his name the way she used to call mine. And still, a part of me wanted to believe it wasn't happening. Maybe they just wandered. Maybe they were just talking. Maybe they'd come out laughing, hands full of corn, and bring it back to grill for dinner like nothing happened. But the truth didn't wait long. They came back after about 20 minutes. Amber's hair was a mess. Her dress was wrinkled. Todd had dirt on the knees of his jeans. She was glowing, not sweaty, not guilty, just glowing, like she'd come back from a day at the spa. I was sitting in the living room when she walked in through the back door, acting like everything was normal. "Hey, Han," she called. "Feeling okay?" I couldn't answer. Not right away. I just nodded and looked at her like I was staring through glass. She set a few ears of corn on the kitchen table and smiled. "Todd gave me some from his garden. He said this batch is real sweet." "Did he?" I finally managed. She looked at me sideways. You okay? I'm just tired, I said. And I was. Not just in my body. In my bones. She went into the bathroom to shower. I sat there in silence. Heard the water running. Heard her humming. That night at dinner, she buttered her corn slowly, running the knife up and down like she was remembering something. Her lips parted as she took a bite. She chewed it slow, eyes closed like she was tasting a memory. I looked at my plate. I couldn't eat. I saw you today, I said finally. She stopped chewing. Huh? I saw you and Todd. By the field. Her face didn't change. Not really. A flicker of something, maybe a wince, maybe annoyance, passed through her eyes. We were just talking, she said. In the cornfield? She looked down at her plate. You're not in your right head right now. The chemo, it messes with you. Makes you paranoid. I didn't answer. I just sat there, staring at the untouched corn on my plate, yellow and glistening under the kitchen light like it was mocking me. She stood up and took her dish to the sink. I'm going to bed early. And just like that, the conversation was over. But I knew. Amber fell asleep fast, or at least pretended to. She had her back to me, again, her breathing steady, deep, like someone unbothered by the wreckage they left behind. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling like my body didn't belong to me anymore. The chemo had taken my strength. The cancer had taken my time. And now, the woman I built a life with was giving herself to someone else in the cornfield behind our home like it was the most natural thing in the world. And yet, I didn't feel rage. I wanted to. I wanted to scream, to flip the dresser, to storm over to Todd's house and beat him bloody. But my body was hollow. Not just from the cancer, but from hope. That's what dies first, I think. Not your cells. Not your muscles. Your hope. The belief that you're still the main character in your own life. I sat up around 2 a.m., dragged myself to the living room, and just sat there in the dark. I stared at the cornfield out the window. Tall, silent, still. And I pictured them, Amber and Todd, down on the ground between those stalks. Her mouth pressed to his neck, her hips rising with need, her voice whispering things she hadn't said to me in years. I whispered something out loud, "Why did you do it?" But no one answered. The next morning was quiet. Amber acted like nothing had happened. She fried eggs, poured orange juice, even tossed me a half-smile when I shuffled into the kitchen. "I made yours with cheese the way you like," she said. I nodded. I didn't say anything. She sat across from me. She looked like the same woman I married, bright, fresh, lovely. But I couldn't look her in the eyes without seeing her lips wrapped around that ear of corn. "Do you love him?" I asked, without warning. The smile dropped off her face like a mask hitting the floor. "What? You heard me." She hesitated. "I don't love him. It's not like that." "But you slept with him." Silence. Then a whisper, "Yeah." That was it. No tears. No excuses. No gaslighting. Just a word. "Yeah." I should have screamed. I should have packed a bag. I should have called someone, my brother, a lawyer, anyone. But instead, I just sat there. My fork hovered above the eggs, untouched. She leaned forward. "Mike. I'm lonely." I looked up, surprised. "I sit here every day watching you get sicker. I go to the hospital and I wait and the whole world just stops. For you, for us. Everything's become this sad, slow drip. And I know that sounds awful, but I'm tired. I needed something that felt alive. Was I not enough?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She stared down at her plate. Then I said something I never thought I would. I forgive you. Her head snapped up. What? I forgive you, I repeated. You're human. I'm sick. And this thing you did, it doesn't mean I stop loving you. It doesn't mean you stop being my wife. She blinked at me, like I'd spoken in a foreign language. You forgive me? I nodded. I don't want to die with anger in my chest. And even if I live, I don't want to carry this bitterness around like a second disease. I forgive you. But it can't happen again. Amber sat back in her chair, stunned. Her hands trembled a little. She didn't cry, but her lip twitched like maybe she wanted to. I don't deserve that, she said softly. Maybe not. But you've still got it. She stood slowly, came around the table, and kissed the top of my head. I'll do better, she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and listened to her footsteps walk back into the bedroom. I stared at my eggs, then picked up my fork and took a bite. They were cold. The thing about forgiveness is, it doesn't erase anything. It's not a magic switch that turns betrayal into devotion. It's not a cure. It's a bandage on a wound that still bleeds beneath. But I meant it. I forgave her. Not because she earned it. But because I needed to. My body was already at war with itself. I couldn't let my heart become another battlefield. For a little while, things got quieter. Amber stopped spending time by the cornfield. At least, not when I was home. She stayed closer, cooked dinner more often, even came with me to one of the longer chemo sessions. She held my hand the whole time, her fingers soft and cold. We didn't talk about Todd. We didn't talk about the field. It was like we'd drawn a line in the sand and agreed never to step over it again. But I could still feel it. That part of her that had gone somewhere I couldn't follow. Todd, on the other hand, didn't seem too rattled. I saw him a few days later, walking his dog near our fence. He gave me a nod like everything was normal. Like we'd never even been rivals. He had that same stupid, smug grin on his face. The same eyes that had looked at my wife like she was ripe fruit in his backyard. I didn't wave back. I just watched him walk past and disappear behind the corn. One night, maybe a week later, I woke up around 3 a.m. and Amber wasn't in bed. I sat up slowly, every joint aching. The house was quiet, no running water, no kitchen light. Just stillness. I got up, wrapped my robe around my shoulders, and moved through the house barefoot. Checked the bathroom. Empty. The living room. Empty. Then I saw it. The back door was open. The screen door eased shut behind a light breeze, creaking on its hinges. Beyond it, the yard was silver under the moonlight. And past that, those rows of corn stood tall and still, like sentinels. I stood frozen at the doorway, staring out at that field. The cool night air brushed against my face. My feet refused to move. Maybe I didn't want to know. Maybe I already knew. But then I heard a sound, a rustle, faint, far off among the stalks. And for a moment, the same fire that had once driven me to fight for my life stirred again in my chest. No. Not again. But just as I was about to step outside, I saw her. Amber. She was walking back toward the house, alone. Her hair was damp with dew. Her feet were bare. She didn't see me watching her from the shadows of the kitchen. When she came inside, I backed away into the hallway like a coward, like a man who wasn't ready to ask the questions he already had answers to. She slipped back into bed without a word. The next morning, I waited until we were both sitting at the table, the sun pouring through the window like nothing had happened. I sipped my coffee and finally asked, "Were you in the field last night?" Amber froze for a second, then set her mug down gently. "Yeah," she said. "I couldn't sleep. I just needed air. I watched her. Alone? She didn't flinch. Yes. Alone. She didn't offer anything more. Didn't apologize. Didn't lie, either, not outright. But that was the thing about betrayal. Once you've seen it, even silence feels suspicious. I nodded and looked out the window. The corn was taller now. Almost ready to harvest. But to me, it just looked like a place where the truth had learned how to hide. And I realized something that morning. I might have forgiven her once, but that field wasn't. The morning after Amber said she'd been in the field, alone, I started noticing things, small things I might have missed before. There was a faint smudge of dirt on her ankle when she came out of the shower. One of her earrings, the small pearl studs I gave her for our 5th anniversary, had gone missing. And she'd started washing her dresses herself instead of putting them in the laundry hamper with mine. That was new. I didn't say anything. I didn't accuse her. I just watched. Waited. My doctor once told me during a scan that the body always shows signs before something breaks. The trick is recognizing which sign matters most. One afternoon, when Amber said she was going out for a walk, I followed her. I stayed far back, careful not to be seen, hugging the edge of the cornfield. The stalks were high now, taller than me, the leaves sharp and whispering in the wind. I kept to the shade, watching her weave through the paths Todd had carved with his tractor weeks earlier. But she didn't meet Todd. She went farther. Deeper. And then, she disappeared. I waited 5 minutes. 10. The sun hung low and golden above the corn, and the wind picked up like it was trying to carry something away. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the rows and followed her trail. About 100 feet in, I found something strange. A small clearing. Not natural, no way. It had been cleared by hand, stalks pulled from the ground, earth flattened. And in the middle of it was a shovel. Just, standing there. And something else, a wooden box, maybe 2 feet long, with a lid that looked freshly hammered shut. My blood ran cold. I crouched beside it and pressed my hand to the wood. It was warm. Not from the sun, fresh warm. My heart pounded as I looked around. And then I heard it. A twig snapped behind me. I turned fast. Amber was standing there, barefoot, her hair loose, her eyes dark and unreadable. "You followed me," she said. I nodded slowly. "What is this?" She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she stepped forward, knelt beside the box, and opened it. Inside wasn't what I expected. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't love letters from Todd. It wasn't some buried stash of money or pills. It was corn. Fresh ears of corn, perfectly aligned, wrapped carefully in cloth, some dried, some plump and ripe. And beside them, photos. Old, curling photos. Of me. One from our wedding. One from my first day in chemo. One, taken without my knowledge, of me sleeping in a hospital bed, pale and thin. Amber looked up at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been burying things," she said. "Memories. Pieces of our life. Every time I felt like I couldn't keep going, I'd come here and leave something behind. It was the only way I could, grieve while you were still alive." I stared at her. "Grieve me? I'm not dead." "But part of you was," she whispered. "And part of me too. And I didn't know how to mourn that without hurting you. So I came here. I made my own place for goodbye." I swallowed hard. The anger I'd carried in my chest cracked a little. "So, Todd?" She hesitated. "It happened. Once. Maybe twice. But that's not why I came here now. Not anymore." I didn't know what to say. She reached into the box and pulled out the wedding photo. I wanted to remember us like this. Before cancer. Before chemo. Before the silence. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a woman just as broken as I was. Maybe not by disease, but by helplessness. By slow loss. By years of waiting for the end that hadn't come yet. I thought you didn't care anymore, I said. She shook her head. I care too much. That's the problem. We buried the box together that evening. Not as a secret. Not as a lie. As a start. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the field was something I had to fear. Maybe what grew there wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was just where pain had to be planted before healing could begin. I thought you stopped loving me, I finally said. Amber was still kneeling beside the buried box of corn and memories, her fingers trembling over the photo in her hand. The late sun painted her hair in gold, but her face stayed shadowed. She looked up at me. I didn't, she said. But I did forget how to show it. A breeze rustled the corn around us, and the field felt suddenly alive, like it was listening. I stood there, trying to breathe through the ache in my ribs and the storm in my chest. I thought that box was something else, I admitted. Something worse. She gave me a sad smile. That's the thing. It was worse, for a while. What I did with Todd, that wasn't about him. It was about escape. About feeling like I was still young. Still wanted. Still capable of making choices that didn't revolve around 4 bags and lab results. You could have just told me, I said. I know. Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. I was scared you'd hate me. I did, I replied softly. For a while. She nodded. We stood there for a minute in silence, surrounded by tall stalks of corn, in a place that had once been a stage for betrayal, but now felt more like a confession booth. Then she rose, brushed dirt from her knees, and stepped closer. I want to make it right. If you let me. I looked at her, the woman who'd broken me and buried pictures of us like offerings to some god of guilt. Then tell me the truth, I said. No more secrets. No more field trips without explanations. She nodded. Okay. We walked back to the house side by side. She held my hand the whole way. And for a few days after that, something shifted between us. Amber seemed more present. She talked more. Laughed sometimes, even. She started asking questions about my treatment again, sitting with me through the hospital visits, bringing books and crossword puzzles like she used to. I let myself believe maybe we were healing. Then, one night, I woke to the sound of a voice. It was faint, like someone whispering just outside the bedroom window. I got up and limped to the front door, heart pounding, every nerve on edge. I opened it slowly and stepped out onto the porch. The moon was bright. The cornfield shimmered in the wind. And then I saw something. A figure, standing at the edge of the field. Not Amber. Not Todd. Someone else. A man in a long coat. Broad-shouldered. Motionless. Watching. I stepped off the porch, instinct prickling down my spine. Hello? I called out. The figure didn't move. I looked back at the door. No Amber. When I turned back, the field edge was empty. Gone. The next morning, I didn't mention it to Amber. Maybe it was a dream. A side effect. I'd been pushing my treatment harder, after all. But that evening, when she came in from a grocery run, I noticed something. A long, blonde hair stuck to the passenger seat of her car. It wasn't hers. And it sure as hell wasn't mine. I didn't say a word to Amber about the blonde hair in her car. I just stared at it, tangled against the upholstery like a thread pulled loose from a different life. It was too long to be hers. Too bright. And it was coiled into the seat like it had been there a while, pressed into the fabric by someone sitting still, for more than a few minutes. I spent the rest of the day in a haze. She was cheerful. Overly so. She made chili and cornbread and even kissed me on the cheek before heading out for a walk just before sunset. A walk. I watched from the window this time. She didn't go near the field. She turned left, toward the ridge behind Todd's place. Disappeared around the bend like it was any other day. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had slipped out of place again. Something subtle. Something sharp. That night, the whispering came back. I was wide awake when it started. Lying in bed alone, Amber hadn't come back yet, and staring at the ceiling. It wasn't wind. It wasn't rustling leaves. It was talking. Real, actual voices. Low, layered, overlapping. I got up, pulled on my robe, and stepped outside again. This time, I brought a flashlight. I followed the sound around the side of the house, through the backyard, and toward the cornfield. The moment I stepped between the rows, the flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then it went completely dark. But the whispers? They didn't stop. They surrounded me. I moved forward, slow, hands brushing against the stalks. The air was colder here, and the corn felt damp with dew that hadn't yet formed. And then, I found the clearing again. But it wasn't empty. Someone had moved the box. The dirt where it once lay was upturned, but the box itself was gone. In its place was something else. A scarecrow. New. Built from old denim and a flannel shirt. But its face wasn't stuffed burlap like the ones I'd seen growing up. It was a mask. A human mask. A face made of wax. Or skin. The eyes were glass marbles, and its mouth was sewn shut with black thread. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a root. And then a flashlight flicked on behind me. I spun around, shielding my eyes. Amber stood there, wide-eyed, barefoot again, clutching a lantern like something out of another century. "What are you doing out here?" I demanded. She stared past me, at the scarecrow. Her face went pale. "I told him not to," she whispered. "Told who?" She didn't answer. I stepped closer. "Amber. What is that thing?" She closed her eyes. Took a shaky breath. "You need to go back to the house. Not until you tell me what's going on." Then, another voice, not hers. "You weren't supposed to see that." I turned sharply. "Todd." "I left a photo of us," Amber said, "and I asked it to take away my pain." Todd moved closer into the lantern light, his expression empty. "Blank." "You told me it helped you forget," he said flatly. Amber nodded. "It did. At first. It took the memories. But then it wanted more." The ground beneath us was soft, spongy. I hadn't noticed before. With every step I took, it gave just a little, like the soil had been freshly tilled. But no one had farmed this land in years. "So what?" I asked, heart pounding. "You made a deal with the dirt?" Amber looked at me, eyes hollow. "I buried a piece of us every time I came here. The wedding ring. A lock of my hair. One of your hospital bracelets. And eventually, it wanted something alive." Todd dropped his head. "I told her not to bring the dog. That's what happened to Riley." Amber looked away. "The field gave me peace. For a while. But it comes at a cost. It always wants more. I tried to stop it, but—" "You brought it me," I said quietly. They both froze. "Didn't you?" I whispered. That's what this was. The apology. The box. The second chance. You brought me out here like a lamb. To feed it. No, Amber said, rushing forward. I swear. Not you. I came out here tonight to stop it. I thought if I gave it the mask, that thing I made from all the guilt, it would be enough. I pointed at the scarecrow. Then why does it look like me? Amber didn't answer. But Todd did. Because you're the seed, he said. What? He pulled something from his pocket. A key. Small and iron, old-fashioned. He held it like it was a talisman. This land is cursed, he went on. Or blessed, depending on who you ask. You plant a memory, it gives you peace. You plant a secret, it gives you power. But when you plant a life. He looked me dead in the eyes. You get rebirth. Amber stepped between us. No. I'm not letting you do this. Todd's voice grew quiet. You already did. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The corn rustled, not in the wind, but from something deeper. Something beneath. Roots pushed up through the soil. Twisting, pulsing like veins. I stumbled back. Amber grabbed my hand, but it was too late. The clearing began to sink. Todd smiled. You've been dying for months, he said. But out here, it doesn't have to end. You can be part of something eternal. The roots wrapped around my ankles. Cold. Wet. Hungry. No. Amber screamed. I reached for her, but the field pulled harder. My body dropped to one knee. My lungs burned. Amber. I shouted. She let go of my hand. I'm sorry, she said. I thought I could fix it. The roots surged. I was pulled into the earth. And then. Darkness. Silence. Then, a heartbeat. Not mine. I opened my eyes. I was back in our bedroom. The sun poured through the blinds. The covers were warm. The air smelled like cornbread. I sat up. No pain. No weight loss. I looked down at my hands, strong. Pink. Alive. I heard Amber humming in the kitchen. Was it a dream? A nightmare? I walked downstairs. Amber turned, smiling. Good morning. What day is it? I asked. First frost's coming, she said. You should check the field. I stepped outside. The corn was gone. In its place, a garden. Rows and rows of seedlings. Green and fresh. And at the very center, where the scarecrow once stood, was a small sapling. It had leaves like silk. And from one of its branches hung a single object. A hospital bracelet. Mine. Amber joined me, placing a hand on my shoulder. You're better now, she said softly. It kept its promise. I nodded, slowly understanding. I had been replanted. Not saved. Transformed. The soil had taken my sickness, and grown something new. Something rooted. Eternal. Amber leaned close. Don't worry, love, she whispered. It only takes one sacrifice. Then she turned back toward the house. But I stayed in the field. Still. Watching. Listening. Because something inside the earth whispered back. And now. I understood it.